Since last year, she was actually a speaker at our retreat. And so Sherry, if you've met her, she is charismatic and vivacious and an amazing redhead. And just has such personality and talent. So today she's going to talk to us about podcasting. And at the end of her presentation, we're going to talk about a special little bonus where you will get to participate in a podcasting adventure. So, do you want to plug yours in, or did you want mine?
Yeah, go ahead and do yours while we're at it.
Well, just
unless you need to.
Ignore the ugly for a moment.
It's turned on. Hi, everybody. I'll introduce myself while we're getting that up there. So I've met most of you guys. My name is Sherry Sutton. I am your marketing mentor. I help small business owners who are the face of their brand figure out, how do I do this whole marketing thing, right? Without feeling like a total dork, spending all your money and all your time, because there's a lot to it and it's really complicated, and some of us hate social media and some of us hate being on camera and some of us, right? And so you have to kind of figure out, how do all those things mix together, right? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What needs to be done? Where are my clients? Where do they hang out? And need somebody to just sit with and help you figure out, like, hey, this is what you need to be doing in order to gain visibility and grow your business. So one of the things that I'm a huge believer in podcasting. And I'm going to talk to you today about a couple things. One is how to become a guest and how to start a podcast. Very, very high level. There's a ton more details into it. But while she's pulling up the presentation,
Let me present on your link.
Oh,
So do you want to plug in?
hold please. A little bit more, talk amongst yourselves. Okay.
Have you been on a podcast? Yeah.
I know. All right, so how many people have day pass? Sorry.
No, I'll try it a different way.
Day
too.
pass. Connect. Day. What is it? Day at Rome.
Day at Rome.
So how many people have listened to podcasts? How many people have listened to podcasts in the last 24 hours? How many people listen to a podcast on the way here in the car? Yeah. How many people have a podcast? Anybody here have a podcast? Yes. All right, good. Tell us the name of your podcast.
It's called Aspirations Over Hesitations. I haven't officially launched it yet, but some of the people in this room have been guests on it.
Excellent. So is it primarily a guest podcast?
Primarily. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. By the way, all of my branding has been done by the fabulous Natalia. She has been my go-to, not only for myself, but all of my clients for forever. So a little shout out to Natalia. Anybody here thought about starting a podcast? Yeah. So what are the things that have held you back? Time.
Not knowing where to start.
Bandwidth, not knowing where to start.
Nervous.
What makes you nervous?
Just the whole thing.
Does that mean I have the dog? What if people don't like me? I have to tell you, it's funny. I think this is a very broad generalization, but as women, we tend to be a little more like, we'll share our emotions with each other. But I can tell you, all of my guy clients at some point look at me and say, what if they don't like me? Really? All of them. Every woman, every man, everyone I work with, there is a moment where they all break into tears. Or, maybe not a lot, but, where it's like, I feel like I'm too old. I feel like no one wants to hear from me. I feel like I don't have anything valued to say. And so one of the first things you gotta do is just get rid of that. Right, is that God gave you a gift, universe, whatever you want to call it, gave you a gift that only you have. And so you have to find a way to get over your own fears to share that with the world. right? And podcasting is a great way to do it. It might not be perfect for you, but we're going to go through exactly what that might look like. So podcast popularity is undeniable. Even just in this room, we saw a whole bunch of people who watched podcasts just this morning. So I'm kind of nerdy. I might not come off as nerdy, but I'm super nerdy. I love statistics. I won't recommend anything to anyone unless it's like based on statistics. I'm not one of those like, hey, here's my 5-part formula for blah, 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 if it's not based on some statistics. So, but there are 4 million podcasts available globally. There are more than that have been started, right? But they're about, I think the number was like 3 million that are active, right? One of the things, 90, I think it was, and this statistic I might have wrong, so, but it's like 90% of podcasts never make it past 18 episodes. So a lot of people start podcasts and, they never do anything with them, right? Like I recently started one, it's called Heart of the Hustle, and I'll tell you more about it later. And there are other Heart of the Hustle podcasts, but they have 3 episodes and never did anything again. Or so I was like, if they haven't done anything in a year, I'll take the name, right? Monthly listeners, 572 million people listen to podcasts worldwide. $30 billion is the projected market value for podcasts this year. So Americans listen monthly. 124 million Americans listen to podcasts every month. 31% of those listeners tune in every week, and the average listener enjoys 7 episodes per week. Does that track with my podcast listeners? One of the other things that's happening is that video is becoming a key part of podcasting. And it's a challenge because when we say podcast, that term originally meant just audio. So then there's this term called vodcast, which I tried to use, frankly, when I launched my studio in January, and no one knew what it meant. So now I'm going back and actually I'm redoing a lot of my copy and my videos to re-explain it because they don't get what a vodcast is. So podcast now doesn't just mean the audio, it also means the video. And my recommendation is you've got to have video. And we're gonna talk about why it gives you the biggest leverage. Everything's moving towards video, especially on YouTube. So a couple stats, 68% of podcasts include video. YouTube is now the number 1 place where people find podcasts. YouTube is, of all the social media channels, it's sort of social media-ish, right? You still talk to people back and forth, so it's still social. I think of all the social media platforms, it's the one that isn't going anywhere, right? I think a lot of us, and Natalia and I were just talking about this before, I'm starting to feel anyway, like Facebook is kind of, right? Even Instagram's kind of, people are just getting burned out on it, but YouTube is something that people still go to learn from, and so I don't see YouTube going anywhere anytime soon. So video is an absolute must. Now, could you start with audio only? Sure, I have a client who's starting with audio only, just to get her moving. Right? She's like, that I can stomach, the rest I don't know. Give me 6 months and then we'll talk about it. But it's got to start with really strong strategy. Don't start a podcast because I'm standing in front of you and I'm telling you how to start a podcast. If it's not based on really strong strategy of what you have to deliver, where your clients are, and do they listen to podcasts to look for information on what you offer, right? So sometimes people won't listen to podcasts for what you have, right? It doesn't make sense for every business. So you have to really sit down with your strategy first and say, does this make sense for my business? Do my clients listen to podcasts to get the kind of information that is going to get them to buy, right? And that's an incredibly important part. No matter what you decide to do in marketing, that's the number 1 question. Is this something that people absorb in order to make a buying decision? And don't just do something as everybody else is doing it. There are lots of people who make a lot of money who are never on social media, who are never on YouTube, who don't have a podcast, right? Or who don't, do advertising. I was just in Philadelphia for a couple weeks, and there's this law firm, and it's got to be their main marketing thing, but they have billboards everywhere, and it's called Pond Lahaki. Pond Lahaki. It's like this weird name, right? But I remember it because I saw it so many damn times, right? But they're an accident, an injury attorney. And so where do people get in accidents and injuries? On the road. So that makes total sense to them. Does a podcast maybe make sense to them? Maybe not. Like, you're not gonna be like, let me listen to a podcast about my injury. Like, you're gonna be like, who the hell can I call and get my money, right? So there's different things that you do depending on where your clients hang out. So you wanna get that strategy done first. And if you don't know how to do that, talk to me, right? That's one of the things that I do for a living. Okay, so there are 3 options when it comes to podcasting. You can, what did I put first? You can start your own podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You can be a guest on other people's podcasts, or you can do both. I do both. So we're going to talk about each in turn. So a few of the reasons, so how many people here have thought about starting a podcast again? So there's a couple of us. Okay, good. All right, so here's the reasons why you want to start a podcast. Increasing awareness of your brand, right, through your guests. So here's one of the cool things about having a podcast that's a guesting podcast, right, where you're having other people on. You get in front of their audience as well. And that's a really nice way to grow your awareness, is you're kind of lobbing on to their audience. And you have to find the right guests, right? Either on your podcast or frankly be on, a guest on someone else's podcast. But it's a great way to share audiences. So it gets you into new people. Increasing authority to drive people down the funnel. Generally, you're going to listen to podcasts about things you know that you're already interested in, right? It's a great place to what we call drive people down the funnel. So you guys have seen that, like that marketing funnel. She presented on it. Somebody presented on it last week, right? Yeah, thank you. So at the top is like awareness, and those are things like, meeting people here, right? Social media, advertising. Then there's this middle part of the funnel, which is like they know who you are, but they're kind of thinking about it, right? That's the I'm thinking about it section. And that's where podcasts are really good, right? People are not going to give you much time unless they're really interested in you, right? The top of the funnel, they're going to give you like 3 seconds, right, on a social media post. When they get further down in the funnel and that thinking about it, that consideration part of the funnel, they're going to give you more time. And so podcasts are a perfect place to give people longer form content so that they can see you as an expert. And then the last thing is a call to action for people who aren't ready to buy, right? So if somebody's like, oh, can I learn more about you? Like, I just want to learn your vibe a little bit more, right? I'm not sure, maybe they're a little reticent to buy. You can be like, great, go to my podcast, right? Check that out. I will tell you that right now, right there. I have my 2 podcasts, right? Go check out my podcast if you guys want to learn more about how to do marketing on your own, right? It's a great resource. And a lot of people will say, I've watched your podcast or your trainings online for years, and now I'm ready to hire you, right? And so it's a great way to kind of continue to engage with people who aren't ready to buy next. The next piece is lead generation, right? So you can use your podcast as a lead generator. So either by saying like, hey, download this freebie, or head over to my website for, generally it's with some sort of a freebie. Building trust and connection with your audience. This is particularly true if you have guests. I find that for many hosts who have their own podcast, if they're nervous about being on camera, one of the best things to do is to have an interview podcast. And here's why, is because when you sit down with someone else, right, you're gonna let your guard down, right? You're gonna start talking, you're gonna be more excited, you're gonna be a little bit more yourself, the conversation's gonna flow. You're gonna be more likely to show who you really are in an interview podcast, whether it's yours or someone else's. Hi, Deepa. Than if you're just kind of staring at the camera without having been trained, right, on how to do that. So it's a nice way to build trust and kind of show yourself a little bit more authentically. My number one reason for starting a podcast, if you leave with nothing else today, is it is a single source of content that you can use in all the different places. Let me show you how I do this. This is my strategy. I have 2 podcasts. I record them, I use them as content for all my social media, YouTube. Let me show you what I do. So I'm actually recording it right now. So I use all my speaking opportunities. I will convert this into a podcast. That podcast will go on my YouTube channel. It will go onto all the podcasting networks. So what that means is like Apple Podcasts, right? Spotify, right? It'll go onto all of those. It'll go onto my blog, which is great for what are blogs good for?
SEO.
Search engine optimization. I'll use it for social media content. If you guys follow me on social media, you'll see that 90% of my content is me speaking as part of one of my podcasts. So all of my social media content is that. So this podcast today that I'm recording right now, right? I'm not only getting in front of all you guys, right? But I'm also gonna get about 2 weeks worth of content from it for social media. So I could do a press release for this if I wanted to. I have some clients who we do press releases for them. And the nice thing about that is then you can put things on, you can put things on your thing like, seen on ABC, NBC, CBS, right? That's a nice reason to do a press release. And then I do an email to my base and say, hey, look, this new thing is out, right? Check it out. So out of one thing, 1 hour of my time, I'm gonna get all of these different pieces of content. And so the cool thing is because I outsource all of this editing, well, I outsource it to my team, but you get the idea, is they make all of this for me, right? So all I have to do is show up and make some sort of hopefully reasonably decent content. You guys can tell me by the end. But does that make sense? And it's one of the reasons why I had this realization at the end of last year. Like, wow, I felt like I was on the content creation hamster wheel, right? Like, oh my God, I have to post on social media, right? And I started doing these live trainings once a week. And then I was like, why am I not breaking those into like smaller segments for social media? Because I've already got that content. And wait, why am I not just putting that on the podcasting places? And why am I not putting it on YouTube? Wait a minute. How about if I just take this one piece of content? So I help my clients create this strategy for themselves. And so it's a really efficient way to create lots of content. Does anybody here struggle with being consistent with creating content? Yeah, every hand went up. Okay, I want to tell you some reasons not to start a podcast. Because I told you the reasons to start a podcast, but it might not be right for you. And so I want to be super transparent about why it makes sense and why it doesn't. It can be a little time consuming. It can be time consuming, especially if you are going to DIY it. Now, just like any other skill set, if you're going to learn Canva or any of those, there are great tools. AI is amazing at this that you'll learn. But there is a little bit of a learning curve if you're going to DIY it. Now, you can also pay for somebody like my team to do it for you, right? But there is a little bit of a learning curve to learn, but I promise you it's really not that hard. I sit down with people and, in a couple hours, they generally know what they're doing, right? If you can use Canva, you can use any of the tools for podcasting, but it can be a little time consuming at first. It does require a long-term approach. So if you're gonna do a podcast, you wanna really commit to it. And this is true of any of your content, right? Whatever you're planning to do, you wanna say, I'm gonna do this for the long term. You're not gonna be like, oh, well, let me try a couple podcasts, and if I don't make $100,000, then I'm not gonna keep going. Like, that's just not how marketing works. Marketing works when you show up every single day over time, right? And so if you're gonna do it, you wanna, continue to stay consistent. There is a little bit of technical setup that can be kind of challenging for people if that's not something you're used to. I actually will give you like a shopping list of here's all the stuff to buy, but I also go in and set this up for people in their houses. So I will set up a podcasting studio for you at home if you don't want to use my podcasting studio. Just because the tech setup can be a little, if you don't know how to plug in USB stuff, it's pretty cool, but sometimes people get weirded out by it. All right, So here's the net on starting your own podcast, and then we're going to move to being a guest on other people's podcasts. So a couple things. It is a central piece of content that allows you to easily generate all the marketing things that you need in order to get your business going. Now, it's not the only thing, right? But it is an incredibly important part of that. It really, truly is, and I can tell you because it's what I do, it's been the single easiest way for me to do that and to create content. And your goal ultimately is to connect with like-minded individuals, be seen as an expert, right? Let people get to know you before they buy from you. And especially for people who are my coaches, right? People want to know who you are first, even photographers, right? When I was doing a lot of photography, people wanted to know me first, right? My business really started moving when I started posting pictures of me, like laying down on the ground, taking pictures, right? People thought those were funny because they want to know who you are as a person. So podcasting is a great way to do that. I'm going to move on to how to be a guest on podcasts, but I want questions. Anybody have any questions so far in starting your own podcast? Yeah?
I have one question. So I love the thing that you mentioned about taking like 1 to 2 hours a week to record the podcast and then outsourcing all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
What is like a rough cost for outsourcing all of the other stuff?
Yeah. So here's my podcast management services. I did not pay her to set that up for me. So thank you. I'll give you a discount on your first month. Like when we do if we do 2 podcasts a month, including video editing, right? And then making social content out of it. Like we'll usually make like 5 pieces of social content out of it, I think is what we have in the initial package. It's like 8 something. And that will give you enough content, right? Usually to get you through 2-ish weeks. And depending on how long the podcast is, we usually don't say more than 5 because sometimes if people talk for 10 minutes, I can't get 10 minutes of content out of that. So while I might have that listed on the site, if you are committed to doing a longer podcast, then we can get you more social, right? More social posts. So generally it's about $1,000. I have another client who's starting soon who's going to be every week. And so that was, in the $1,500. I don't think you need to do every week. He's got a business that's very topical. It's sports, and so he wants to, be able to talk about what happened that last week in sports, and 2 weeks is too long to go, so it doesn't make sense for him. He needs to have it be every week, but for most businesses, it doesn't need to be every week. It can be twice a month. And I would recommend, and what I do is I actually record both on the same day if I'm recording and not doing something like this. I've had the good fortune, thank you, to speak at a lot of places lately, and so I've just been sort of recording myself speaking. It's a little bit of a cheat, but it works, right? You gotta find, how do I repurpose everything that I do every single day into content, right? Deepa, you're amazing at that, right? Like set up the camera while you're cooking and then post it on social media, right? Like,
I repost stuff from years ago too, so nobody will know.
yeah, nobody will know. Don't change your hair. Like that's the issue. Like you gotta stay consistent in your hair and all that. So what other questions do you have? So I'll just put this up there on my website. I've got a couple things. I also do, sorry, I just blew through the whole thing. If you guys are interested in just getting some help starting your podcast and maybe like setting up a podcast for you at home, or you can come hang out in my studio, I've got some information on that. That's something else that I do because not everybody needs the whole thing, right? They just need help getting the thumbnail, getting all the DIY training to learn how to do it, and so I offer that too. I've been doing that a lot with people lately. All right. So if you don't want to start a podcast, but you still want to like take advantage of this whole podcasting thing, being a guest on podcasts is a great way to do that. Anybody been a guest on podcasts? Yeah, good. Quite a few people have. Good. Yeah, it's a great way, again, to connect with like-minded individuals. It's a great way to meet partners. Like, I've been on a lot of podcasts where, like, the podcast didn't do a lot for me, but meeting that person and getting to know them better through our conversation then allowed me to develop deeper relationships, deeper partnerships. The great thing about being on a podcast with someone else's podcast is it allows you to get in front of their audience. Now, you want to make sure that they're decent at marketing their podcast so that you do get in front of their audience, because I can tell you there's a lot out there that aren't great at that. So either you need to make sure you get all the resources so you can take advantage of it on your social, or you know that they do a good job. I made that mistake quite a bit early on, and I did a TED Talk at the beginning of 2024. And I wanted to start telling my personal story, right? But I wasn't totally, before I got on the big stage and did it, right? So I started being on podcasts about recovery. My TED Talk was about my journey through addiction and recovery. So I started going on addiction podcasts and recovery podcasts because I wanted to get in the habit of telling the story before being on the TED stage. And it was a great way for me to practice my messaging, practice how I was going to say it, play around with it, right? And so podcasts are great for that too, especially if you're not a super great speaker, but you want to be, but you're not sure. Being a guest on other people's podcasts is a great way to do that. Getting practice on camera, and then making sure that you have content to use on all your platforms. If you are going to be a guest on someone else's podcast, ask them to please give you the content. I can tell you from experience, sometimes they're good about it, sometimes they're not, right? But you want to try and at least ask, right, that you're going to be able, so then you can repurpose that content. Because you want to be able to, anything you do in life, you want to be able to use it as marketing, right? Right now, everybody take out your phones. I'm serious. Take a picture with your neighbor, or take a picture of me. I don't care. And now you've got a social media post. Done. See?
And tag CEO moms.
And tag CEO moms.
Yeah.
We did it.
All right. So everything you do, you should be making, right? You should be using for content. All right. Why does it keep going to the end? I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, so who should be on a podcast, right? Are you going to be a good podcast guest? This is what they're going to look for. You're naturally an easy talker, and you create your best content when talking to other people. How many people feel good being like, hi, my name is blah, 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 and this is what I sell, right? Not many of us, right? Not many of us at all. And so for most of us, it's much easier to be in a conversation, especially if it's someone that we like. Man, I have been on some of these some podcasts where the host is a dud, right? And you're like, oh boy, I gotta pull out all the resources to try to be charming right now because they're not helping me at all. But generally, people who have podcasts are gonna have a personality that's gonna bring you out, right? And so you want to think about that too when you listen to their podcast. Is like, is this the type of personality that's going to be able to get me out of my shell? And am I the type of person who is going to be okay having a conversation and allow myself to let my guard down a little bit? If you are a one-word answer kind of person, nothing against that, right? A lot of introverts is that being a guest on podcasts might not be right for you. But if you're like, oh, please just let me sit down and have a conversation, and I'm going to be happy, then it'll be perfect for you. So a couple of the reasons why should you be on the podcast. We already did that one. Okay, so I want to share with you, if I've convinced you that you should be a guest on other people's podcasts, I want you to find a couple different resources of places that you can get onto other people's podcasts. So where you learn about those opportunities. One, just in our market, right? There's lots of people who have podcasts. But the first one, I'll move out of the way so you can take a picture. The first website, and everybody should be on this website, it's called Qwoted. Qwoted. And it is a a place where podcasters and mostly journalists, but it's moving more towards podcasters. It's where they look for people who can give them content for their articles, right? Or content for their podcast. So you'll see things on it like, I'm looking for a dietitian to comment on Kim Kardashian, eating nothing but apples to lose weight, right? Or whatever. I love picking on Kim Kardashian. But it's a great website. You do have to sign up, you just give them your information. They will send you an email every day. It's a long email. You can tell them what you're interested in. I'm signed up for everything because I look at it for all of my clients every day. But this is a great place. And like I said, they're doing more and more outreach for podcasting, but it's also just good for if they're looking for, they're regularly, like Courtney, they're regularly looking for doctors, right, to give feedback on something. They're regularly looking for like financial planners, and so this is a really great site to be on. The next one, this is a Facebook group. It's got a gazillion people in it, right? So this is from a long time. This is from a couple of months ago, but like, that's a client. I think we're all in it. You're in it, I think.
It's the Wild West of there.
It's gotten to be, and I was like on the fence about keeping this in here, but I just wanted to, I still feel like it's a good one. This was the original group that everyone went to when they were looking for guests or finding, or wanted to be a guest on a podcast. It's gotten a little Wild West. There are a gazillion other ones out there now. I haven't found any of them that have really good traction, so this is still a good one. But you have to be proactive in it. So you'll see as you go through it, there are people who they'll say, hashtag be a guest, here's who I am, here's why I'm awesome. The better the photograph and the more interesting the photograph, the better, right? With some graphic or something, the better off you're gonna be. So that's another good resource. And here's my new favorite resource for getting on podcasts. It's called PodMatch. So I actually recently signed up as I'll move out of the way, as an agency on PodMatch. So now my clients pay me to help them to get podcast spots. And so just because it's, you gotta go in and check it, and there's a decent amount of work in just like, hey, here's who I am, here's why I'd be great for your podcast, right? But I've gotten I just did this 2 weeks ago, not even, while I was on vacation, so I was half paying attention, and I got one of my clients like four guesting opportunities in 2 weeks, right? And then and people started reaching out to her. So I wanted to test it first before I ever, put my name on it. But this is a really good one as well. If you sign up, it's like $30 a month. If you sign up with my QR code, or if I can get that out of the way, I get a little something. So I'd love that. Thank you. I'll buy you coffee. With that something. But I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to start using it for myself to get on a podcast as well. So I'm just playing with it with my clients. So I like this a lot. So I also have a podcast called Heart of the Hustle. And the idea behind Heart of the Hustle is for people who want just a place where they can go and get interviewed, but they really want like rich content out of it. Because sometimes you're on a podcast and you don't know if you're going to get any of the content back. So I guarantee you will get the content back. It is a paid thing, but it's really a way to just get a month's worth of content just by sitting down with me and hanging out and having a conversation. But we kind of put it under the podcasting umbrella because I put it out on all the podcasting places. I put it on YouTube. I give you a bunch of stuff. So I kind of wanted to show you, and then you'll also get a sense of what a podcasting studio looks like if you've never been in one.
Expansion of our direct-to-film selection. Introducing DTF Station.
Welcome to Heart of the Hustle, the perfect space for entrepreneurs to share their stories, connect with their audience, and create professional content that grows their business. Let's talk about the Heart of the Hustle podcast, a space where mission-driven share the why behind their business.
entrepreneurs.
We'll have a one-on-one prep meeting to map out exactly what you want to say and how to say it so you can show up to your interview with confidence. And then during the interview, it's all about conversation. No script, real, authentic you. And the studio isn't just for the vodcast. It's also a fully equipped space where you can record your own branded videos or podcasts. With multiple backdrops, including a green screen, we can customize the look and feel of your content to align perfectly with your brand. If the thought of remembering what to say, don't worry, we've got a teleprompter to make it easy and keep you on track. For your website, social media, or YouTube, we've got all the tools and support you need to make it happen. Whether you're a guest on Heart of the Hustle podcast or using the studio to record your own content, we're here to help make you shine. My team and I you can focus on what matters most, sharing your story and growing your business. Plus, if you're a vodcast guest, your episode will be shared on the Heart of the Hustle website and its social channels, YouTube, and all major podcast business the visibility it deserves. Your story matters and the world needs to hear it. Whether you're ready to be a guest on the Heart of the Hustle podcast or creating custom content in the studio, I'm here to make it easy, fun, and stress-free. Let's work to help you share your story, grow your visibility, and create the business you've always dreamed of.
So that's a little kind of look into my podcasting studio. You can take all that stuff down, right? Like you can take down the Heart of the Hustle sign, or we can change the lighting and stuff so it can look like your thing. And it's just nice because then you don't have to set it up at all. Questions? How much time do we have?
5 minutes.
Okay. What questions do you have? Yeah.
I've seen a lot, like I'm kind of in the beginning stages of doing all the research and all the podcast stuff, but I've seen a lot of people have like those one sheet, like this is who I am, this is what I do. Do you like recommend that? Is it something where you can just reach out to somebody and be like, hey, this is who I am, this is my story, like, or do people really like prefer?
It varies by the person. Once you have that copy written, it's usually all about just getting those resources together, right? Having the copy written, and then you can reach out. Like the PodMatch, I don't have like a one pager up there. It's just copy, right? It's just text. So I think it's nice to have. You can stick it on an email, right? I don't think it's essential, but it's nice. Sometimes people just want to see you too, especially if you're reaching out to somebody just via email, not on something like PodMatch where they can see you. I know it's, I think people still want to see that you're look like a decent human being, right? And the other thing about doing something with PodMatch is they get to see here's the links of other podcasts you've been on and so forth. So it's a great idea. I have one. I never use it. That gives you some indication. What else? Yeah.
When you were talking about being a guest and you said, look and see how they market and all that kind of stuff, what's the kind of the criteria that you look for as far as marketing? What do you...
Yeah, I look, which podcasting places are they on? Are they on all of them, or are they just on just maybe on Apple? Do they have a YouTube channel? Because that's really going to help with SEO. So YouTube's owned by Google, and so anything you have in the description of those podcasts, right, is going to help you from a search engine optimization perspective. You also want to make sure that on YouTube, if they do have a description, right, which they probably do. I mean, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll be like episode 1 with. And that doesn't help with SEO, right? So you want somebody who's actually spending the time. It's rare to find somebody who puts in the good descriptions, right? But hopefully they do. Do they have a social media presence? Are they going to post about you on social media? Are they willing to tag you and or more specifically add you as a collaborator? because you want them to not only be tagging you or, I've been on podcasts where they just say my name. And I don't know if it's necessarily because they don't know how, because I've been like, hey, did you know you can tag me? And they're like, yeah. Or they just don't want people to leave their platform, right? They want, which I don't get, but. So some of that, right? Do they look like they're marketing the guests as much as themselves, or marketing at all? There are a lot of podcasts that, they're generally the ones that are under 20 episodes that don't market very well at all. Now, you might not care, especially if you're in a phase of your business where you're like, I just need to start talking about myself and my business, and I need to just start, having a test ground without having to stand in front of a room full of people or start your own podcast. And I don't care if anybody sees it. Like when I was doing the recovery podcast I told you about before my TED Talk, I didn't really care if anybody saw it. I just needed to hear myself talking about it in a way that I knew people might see, right? And that's okay too. So it kind of comes back to strategy. To answer your question well enough?
Yes.
Okay.
If you start a podcast,
Yeah.
how long should the episodes, how long should you shoot for?
Yeah. So episode length is the question. You can do, there's like mini episodes now. Generally they're 12 to 18, I think the sweet spot was 18 minutes. They can go as long as an hour. I don't listen to hour-long podcast. I don't have an hour generally unless it's on in the background or something. So I try to hit 20 minutes. But today, however long I've been talking, it'll probably be 40 minutes. Right? This podcast will probably be 40 minutes. And that's okay. So, but if it's just me, usually 20 minutes. It's hard to keep it under 20 minutes if you're in a conversation, or maybe that's just me because I talk a lot. So, yeah. So 20 to 40. For the heart of the hustle, I try to cut off at 40, unless they've got a really interesting story, or unless I know if they've come to me and said, I need 20 reels out of this, and then I'll be like, cool, all right, let's give it a full hour. Let's make sure I have enough questions to ask you, right? So that you're getting enough reels. What else? Any other questions?